us have navigated complexities in our lives. And when I'm reflecting about navigating complexity, most of those times, how much of it we've navigated? Navigated implies that we've been in control in that process, as opposed to actually pretty much surviving that complexity and going through the other side of the tunnel, more by default than by design. I want to share a story with you that I think exemplifies what mastery really looks like and what mastery exemplifies in the context of complexity. And this is the story of this young mountaineering. His name is Alex Honnold. And some of you might have seen his TED Talk and his documentary in National Geographic. He became extremely, extremely famous a couple of years ago when he climbed the El Capitan, which is a vertical wall of 3,000 meters. And just for you to get a context of what does a vertical granite wall looks like, is 2.5 times as tall as the Empire State, and it's 3 times as tall as the Eiffel Tower. So he climbed that in less than 4 hours, and he climbed that alone, and he climbed that without a rope. So when you reflect about complexity and you think about his story, I think it really draws a lot of parallels about how do you master those skills and those behaviors that are required to be able to do something like that. In his TED Talk, which I highly recommend you to see, he talks about 2 stories of free solo climbing. The first one, where he was unprepared, where he went to it and realized halfway that he got scared. Of course, he survived, because when you're doing free solo climbing without a rope, there's only pretty much one way forward or one way downward, right? And the second story that he shared is how that experience helped him reflect that he really, really needed to master and never again go through complexity by default, but really by design. So he took 7 years to master the El Capitan. He climbed it 50 times. So he memorized it to perfection to really have that perfect experience of climbing his second free solo. And I want to show you just a 20-second clip of his climb, just for you to get a sense of how does it look like. What I like about Alex's story is, on the one hand, is of course a story of determination, intent, perseverance, and hard work, and how he prepared himself physically, mentally, emotionally to be able to do this, right? The second reason why I love this story is that in a metaphorical way, in the context of our business, in the context of our world of work, we are somewhere also climbing El Capitan. We are also on that vertical wall as things are changing around us. And we look at that complexity, and we really have just 3 choices. And we are clinging in that El Capitan right now as we speak. Either we can cling, which is we will go through that complexity by default, and hopefully some of us will survive. Hopefully many of us will survive, but some of us may not. Or we could choose to fall and say, you know, this is overwhelming, I can't do anything about it. Or we can choose to climb, which was what Alex Honnold did, and truly, truly prepare not only our skills, but our behaviors and our mindsets to be able to climb that complexity and to climb our own very El Capitan, whatever that is. It may be a new project you're undergoing, a new skill that you want to learn. It may be a new transformation journey that you're leading in your organization. I think the fact that all of you are here this morning in People Matters Tech HR means that you've chosen to climb. So a very warm welcome to all of you to People Matters Tech HR India 2019. It's a pleasure to welcome you all after many, many months of preparation, of putting and curating with so much love and effort everything that you're going to experience in the next 2.5 days. So why is it important to reflect about complexity? I think many times we talked about simplification and simplifying. I think we've come to that term where complexity is a new reality. And there are three drivers of complexity that the founder of World Economic Forum talks about. First one is velocity. And all of you have heard the story about how rapidly iPod took over. Radio took 38 years to reach 50 million listeners. iPod just took 3 years. Facebook only took 2 years to reach 50 million users, and Angry Birds only took 35 days to reach 50 million users. What does that mean? It means that we are driving on a car that is not equipped to the change of speed, and we're driving with a set of skills that, again, are not equipped to that set of skill. So we need to be aware that velocity is just adding to our complexity. The second driver of velocity is multiplicity, which is also called the butterfly effect. So a butterfly springing their wings somewhere in Sao Paulo has an effect, and a hurricane somewhere in Shanghai. So very, very small local events can actually create huge repercussions globally. And I'll give you an example. In 2010, I don't know if you remember, there was a very small eruption of a volcano somewhere in Finland. And that created actually the whole closing down of the airspace in Europe for almost 10 days, which cost $2 billion of losses for the airline industry. So a very, very small effect of something happening somewhere very local can actually multiply its effects globally. The third driver of complexity is interconnectivity. And we saw that in 2008 with the subprime crisis in the US and how that actually triggered the breakage of the financial system and also of many organizations both in Europe and in America breaking down. So the world is not anymore 6 or 7 degrees of separation, but actually just maybe 1 or 2. So when you reflect about that complexity, you really need to look at how these three things are increasing it and how is that affecting your work. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to invite you to reflect about your own context of complexity, and we have 3 rooms across this venue. So some of you are seeing me in this very room, some of you are seeing me in the other 2 rooms. So we'll have to do this exercise, and I've actually never done it virtually, so you'll have to walk with me a little bit. The objective of this exercise is going to be to help us reflect about our own context of complexity. Before we do that, if I can request everyone who has a seat next to yourself to just raise your hand. If you have a seat next to you, just raise your hand. And everyone who's at the back, kindly follow the hands. Go find a hand. Keep it up so people know where to come. Everyone at the back can please go and find a seat. Keep your hand up. If you still have a seat, keep your hand up so we get everyone to sit. If you don't mind, keep your hand up. I'll continue. It's a little bit exercise. It's always good early morning. So keep your hand up until that seat gets, I'll let you know when there's no more people at the back, I promise. All right, so what we're going to do with this exercise is everyone has a card in your seat. You can keep your hand up and listen to me at the same time. This is an exercise of complexity. I think we can do that. If Alex Honnold can climb a 3,000-meter granite wall, we can definitely listen and keep our hand up at the same time. All right, okay, now you can keep your hand down. Fantastic. So what we're going to do with this card, you can see a card with something is written on it. What is written on that card, I promise you, makes no sense, right? And it doesn't make sense on purpose. It's been designed to make no sense, all right? So that's number one. What I'm going to invite you to do is I'm going to give you a minute to draw what you're reading. And again, remember, it doesn't make sense. Remember, it should make sense only to you. You will not have to show this drawing to anyone, I promise you. So it doesn't need to look good. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just should make sense to you. So the card looks something like this. So if you're seeing us on our virtual track and you obviously don't have a card, so if you don't have a card, please raise your hand. I'll request somebody from our People Matters team to give you a card. If I can have colleagues, please. Yeah, every card will say something else. All the cards are different. All the cards are different. So your card will say something like this. Draw a cricket player holding a badminton racket with chasing a cat running an uphill. Or it will say something else about a fruit or about, you know, a superhero. It will say something that makes no sense. So I'm going to give you a minute to actually draw that sentence. It's going to be difficult, it's going to be challenging, but it's not going to be as difficult as climbing a 3,000-meter granite wall. So we can do that. Yeah, are we ready? So anybody doesn't have a card, you can raise your hand, keep it up, and I'm going to start the time right now. So these 3 things we have to do: read the sentence, visualize those words in your own mind, draw that image, don't bother on how it looks, it should just make sense to you. And I'm going to give you just a minute to complete this activity. Yeah? All right, so time is up. Over to you. Okay, next 30 seconds. You can scribble something, it also works. All right. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to use this drawing. And again, remember, this drawing is for you personally. We're going to use this drawing to reflect about how does this image describes the current complexity that I'm undergoing in my own context. And we're going to do that in pairs. So with the person sitting next to you, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. 1 minute, one of you will just share your experience with the other colleague, saying that this drawing, how this drawing represents the complexity I'm undergoing currently in my workplace. After you've completed 1 minute, I'll give you a heads up on time, so then the other colleague can also share his story. Are we ready? Just with somebody sitting next to you. If you don't have somebody sitting next to you, you can move 1 chair. Yeah? So over to you. First 1 minute, one of you can share your story about how does this drawing describes the complexity that I'm undergoing right now. Okay, last 1 minute completed. Now you can exchange the second story. People at the back can join us in the front. There are chairs in the front. Please come. All right, last 10 seconds. There are chairs here in the front, please. All right, okay. So what are some of the adjectives? If you have a chair next to you, can you raise your hand? If you have a chair next to you, everyone who's looking for a chair, please look for the hands. If you have a chair next to you, please raise your hand. Raise it higher, higher, higher. Okay, lovely. Okay, what are some of the adjectives? Can I have everyone's attention now? Thank you. What are some of the adjectives that emerge in your conversation? Mukesh, can we have the music off, please? Thank you so much. What are some of the adjectives that emerged from the conversation? Anybody who can call it out? Managing emotions. Smile. Expression. Expressions. Balance. Conflict. Beautiful word. What else emerged in that conversation? Uncertainty. Togetherness. Together? Together? Okay. Juggling. Okay, wonderful. What else? Ambition. Ideas. Creative. Change. Lack of clarity. Uncertainty. Not able to see, not able to visualize. Right? So I think those are all words that describe the ambiguity. Some of them are exciting words, some of them are scary words, and that's really the reality of the complexity that we're living in. And I love this quote from Scott Peck that talks about abandon the urge to simplify. And I think that's so interesting because as leaders, we've somehow been trained and we have been encouraged to simplify. And I think the complexity that you all just described really is forcing us to really appreciate life in its own complexity. So the time has probably come of stopping trying to simplify things and actually embracing complexity and realizing that is a reality that we need to deal with. So 3 things I'm going to leave you with as we close this opening keynote this morning. How do we make the best out of People Matters Tech HR? These being an investment on each one of us of your time for the next 2.5 days to really build that capacity, to really build the ability to navigate complexity better than when you came this morning. So after 2.5 days, what is the impact that People Matters Tech HR has created in you? We will measure it in your ability to be able to navigate complexity better and to really look at your own personal El Capitan, whichever that is, a new skill, a new project, a new career, a new transformation journey you're leading. So the first thing is about knowledge, access, and exposure. And Alex Honnold's story shows us how he took actually 7 years to perfect everything he had to perfect from technology perspective, from knowledge perspective. So in the next 2.5 days, you're going to have 6 tracks. The 2 days are divided. Today's focus is going to be on productivity. Tomorrow's focus is on innovation. 2 very, very important business drivers we need to drive as HR professionals. Among the 6 tracks, you will have learning, which is delivered in a formal way, informal way. We have our unconference. So it gives you an opportunity to really embrace the different formats of learning across the 2.5 days. The 4 main themes of the conference would be Future is Now, which is the turquoise track, which focuses on new technologies that you may not be using them today, but you should be able to visualize them. You should be able to understand them. The second track is Tech as a Glue, which is how are you leveraging technology to make HR more efficient and more effective. Third is the Digital Force, where we will have CEOs and non-HR professionals coming and sharing with us what is the digital context that businesses are moving in. And our last one was our masterclasses, which will focus on deep dive on some of the skills that are critical for you as HR professionals. These are all the different areas that you will see throughout the 2.5 days. We have ideas for the future with our whole exhibition area. There's a lot of learning in every one of our partners that are displaying the products today. So it's very important for you to visualize the future by understanding which products are available in the market. The startup track, we have curated 35 startups that are going to be presenting their products and their innovation in the startup track. You have the workshops on Saturday, which are for those eager learners who want to spend half of their Saturday perfecting one skill. So that will happen on Saturday morning. We have our master classes that happen throughout the 2 days and are only pre-registered. So I'm sure all of you have already pre-registered for them. The unconference that happens just next door, and the Night Fest, which is tonight, and again, is sold out. So I hope you've pre-registered for that as well. All right, so what we're going to do, the second thing that I invite you to do is also to visualize, and all of you mentioned, some of you mentioned about visualizing complexity. I think the second tip that I leave you with today is when you think about complexity, what are the words and images that come to your mind? And there is a very beautiful exercise from Marisa Peer, which if we have time, do I have 30 seconds to do this exercise? Yes? Okay, I have. All right, lovely. So this exercise that Marisa Peer shares exemplifies how important our vision and our words are on the way we look at things. And I'm going to request you to imagine you have a lemon in your hand. Can you show me your lemons, everyone? Okay, you have a lemon. It's a half a lemon. It's a big, squeezy, smelly lemon, and it smells really, really like something, right? So I'm going to invite you to just close your eyes. Just keep feeling, smell that lemon. Just smell it. Yeah, it smells really awesome. Yeah, and I'm going to invite you in just a minute to just take a really big bite of that lemon. That squeezy lemon, you keep it and take a big bite and feel that lemon inside your mouth. Now you can open your eyes, and you would have noticed that all of us are already generating saliva, right? Now, you don't have a lemon in your hand, right? So that exercise just helps us reflect about the images and the words that we associate with complexity will determine our body reaction towards those. So if we associate some of the words that you really mentioned, togetherness, excitement, opportunity, to complexity, our body is more likely to be open for it. If we associate words like not able to visualize, not able to do it, struggle, I don't want to do it, our body is more ready to be able to actually go away from that. So that's the second thing I'm leaving you with. So as you go through the day today and tomorrow, visualize some of the things that you want to change in your own mind about your own perception of complexity. The last thing, and I'm going to close now, is about making the familiar unfamiliar and making the unfamiliar familiar. And again, I'm going back to Alex's example. How when he was preparing for that climb, there was a very, very challenging part of the 3,000 meter where he actually needed to do a karate kick to be able to move up. Now, he realized that was unfamiliar. He realized that was a really tough one. And that could mean the end of his life. So he realized what was unfamiliar and what was challenging and made that familiar. And he spent weeks and weeks stretching that leg until he realized that now that had become muscle memory. That had become familiar. So as you go through the 2.5 days as well, I invite you to think about what are the things I need to change, which are unfamiliar, which are going to equip me better to perform in the context of complexity. So just to quickly summarize, dive on your knowledge, visualize what complexity means to you, and make the unfamiliar familiar. My final quote for us to reflect, and this is something that is a journey for me as a leader as well, how this quote shares with us that seek simplicity but distrust it. Alex first climbed, he thought that I will just go and climb, and he realized it wasn't so simple. So as you go to these 2.5 days in People Matters Take HR, it's a journey to your future self, it's a journey to your better self. And remember, People Matters Take HR is not just a conference, but it's an experience. So make it memorable. Thank you very much.